We're really halfway through the 2020s. Wow. Hey there, Cinephiles. Today I'm going over my top 10 films of the 2020s so far. Any movie I've seen from 2020 to 2024 is eligible for this list, and I've seen a good amount of them. I can't remember the number exactly right now, but I'll flash it on the screen in a second. And I gotta say, due to the nature of how the 2020s started, it took a while for consistently good movies to be released in this decade, but we finally got there. We had some really good years so far. And by the looks of it, it seems like the second half of the 2020s might also be really great. Talking to you, 2026. But all right, looking at all the great movies that have been released and that I've seen in the 2020s so far, let me go through my honorable mentions. First one is Luca from 2021. When I first saw this, I saw it with a good friend of mine and we immediately went to Olive Garden after. But when it finally got released for the first time in theaters a couple years after, that took this movie to a whole other level that it almost made the list. The second honorable mention is Honora from 2024. One of my favorite movies from last year from Sean Baker. Sean Baker and Mikey Madison, if you ever make a movie again, I am there the very first showing. This is a wonderful film that has wonderful performances, is hilarious, and is just a great time all around. The third honorable mention is The Worst Person in the World from 2021. A fantastic film that I only saw once, and honestly, if I were to rewatch it, it might actually make the list. But because it's been a while since I saw it, it kind of has that disadvantage. But just thinking about it and seeing the title again, it makes me want to rewatch it right now. And the final honorable mention is Come On, Come On from 2021. Joaquin Phoenix and that kid actor, I'm forgetting his name right now. An amazing duo. It's a beautiful looking film. It felt colorful when I was watching it, even though it was shot in black and white. Some wonderful themes are in here, and the connection between the two leads like nothing else. But all right, now let's get into my top 10 films of the 2020s so far. At number 10, I have RRR from 2022. This is the only fully non-English film on this list, and my goodness, I need to watch more Hollywood movies. You talk about a movie that is just infectious with its energy and joy and anything it's trying to do, especially those dance numbers. Natu. My goodness, man, that was the song of the year for me. Even now when I go out to the clubs, I do this dance. It's, if you get it, you get it, but it's kind of hilarious. This is a massive film that just goes extremely crazy and is not afraid to do anything it needs to tell its story. There are two wonderful lead performances in this, and you're going back and forth for who you're rooting for, and ultimately you're just rooting for their bond. Some of the absolute best action seen on screen for me. Meet some wonderful emotion and comedic timing, and just so many great things are in this film. It's almost as if this is a live action cartoon to the fullest extent, and I'm so here for it. I've been meaning to rewatch this before this video, but it's been on my head for so long now. If you haven't seen this, please do. At number 9, I have Challengers from 2024. From the great mind of Luca Guadagnino comes a wonderful trifecta of wonderful performances. I know I said wonderful a lot of times, didn't mean to, but I truly mean it. This love triangle that's about power dynamics in different types of relationships, and it all centers around tennis. It sounds like it wouldn't work, or at least not necessarily be for me, but this might be Luca's best work. Time will tell if this is properly recognized by the Academy at the awards, but it's truly deserving as one of the best films of not only the year it came out, but of the entire decade so far. From the wonderful soundtrack to the exquisite performances to the very messy storytelling, but messy in a good way, to even some of the cinematography that's in here. Everything is working on so many great cylinders, and it gets better with every single watch. And I've seen this 3 times already. This is absolutely a wonderful film, and I am glad to have it on my list. At number 8, I have Poor Things from 2023. This honestly should have won Best Picture over Oppenheimer. I'm sorry, I love Oppenheimer, but I love this a lot more. Yorgos Lanthimos directs this wonderful take on the Frankenstein tale, and Emma Stone delivers her best performance yet. This film is so bizarre and so funny and has wonderful visual flares in it, and is just so imaginative. I mean, on so many levels, this movie works. For it to do as well as it did as an Oscar contending darling, and for it to be so weird, I just love how this movie is possible. It's a bit controversial on how explicit it is, especially in the sexual nature, but to me, a lot of it just adds to the storytelling and actually builds out a wonderful tale and character study for Emma Stone's character. All in all, this houses one of my favorite performances, not only for the lead actress, but also for the side characters of Mark Ruffalo and Willem Dafoe. And to me, this is genuinely the best Yorgos that I think we'll ever get. And that's why I watched it so many times in the theater, because I don't think I'll ever get this feeling again, at least from his work, because I do think this is his magnum opus. And hey, if he does better than this, we have a generational director on our hands. At number 7, I have The Iron Claw from 2023. Now, I know I said Poor Things should have won Best Picture, but I like this movie more. It's an absolute travesty for how this movie did not get nominated for a single Oscar, let alone the absolutely heartbreaking performance from Zac Efron. If you didn't think that Zac Efron was a good actor before this, watching this film will convince you of that immediately. And if not, at least by the very end. A truly tragic tale of a band of brothers. My goodness, the emotion that outpours from this movie and just makes you feel. It's not an easy watch by any stretch of the imagination, but it is absolutely beautiful, not only in its story, but in its acting and its cinematography and just so many other aspects of the film. It's a hard watch, but again, yet another movie I want to rewatch as soon as possible. At number 6, I have After Sun from 2022. Speaking of heartbreaking movies, After Sun, the dancing scene to Under Pressure, I can't even listen to that song now without thinking of this movie and just the emotions that comes from Paul Mescal and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name, who plays the daughter, but their chemistry together as a father-daughter duo, truly amazing. And for this to be a directorial debut from Charlotte Wells, my goodness, I am beyond excited to see what she does next. This is just one of the best made and intimate films of the entire decade so far, and in fact, of any movie I've ever seen. It's one of my favorites of all time, and for very good reason, because of the wonderful performances and the story it's telling and how it's telling that story. It just feels so expertly crafted that I would be remiss if I didn't include this on my list. At number 5, I have Babylon from 2022. From my favorite living director, Damien Chazelle, he goes all out in this, truly exploring every single facet of what it means to be a filmmaker in this, from the actors to the PAs to the directors, just anything and everything. What it means to work in the business is explored in this film. When I saw this film, I had no 5 out of 5 star movies on my letterbox, and this was just incredibly close to being the very first one for me. And for as long as this movie is at 3 hours, I watched it 3 times in the theater, and I wished I saw it more in the theater. It's a great theatrical experience, and it's just so overwhelming at times with its beautiful score and its wonderful acting from all of the performances. Just the insane cinematography and production is just, everything is firing off on all cylinders, except for a moment in this movie. If it wasn't for the Tobey Maguire of it all, like once we get to there, that's when this movie dips down to me, because if not, this movie would be so much higher on this list and just one of my absolute favorites of all time. It is one of my favorites of all time, but it could have been top 5 of forever for me. Outside of that, the humor is wonderful, the performances, the writing, everything is so sharp, and oh man, it's a nearly perfect film, which is also divisive to so many people, and I'll never understand why. Coming in at number 4, I have Dune Part 2 from 2024. A movie that I watched 4 times in the theater in different ways, from IMAX to Dolby to just regular screenings. This is a cinematic experience that I wish was still in theaters. This is my favorite film from 2024, and it's my Star Wars. I was debating on putting the first Dune on this list, but I thought Dune Part 2 was just so encapsulating of both movies that this was enough. Truly a cinematic experience like no other. Again, if this is released in theaters, even just for a day, I am dropping everything to rewatch this, because this in a theater, to the people that love the Avatar films, this is what that does for me nowadays. A space epic that has wonderful themes and is digested in such a way that it leaves you thinking for days and weeks and months. There's nothing like it right now that's doing it this well on this large of a scale, and I'll always appreciate this movie, truly. That being said, Still got to read the book. At number 3, I have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse from 2023. One of my favorite animated movies of all time, and just what a sequel. Massive in its storytelling, yet so personal. That's just something so hard to pull off, especially in the way this is animated. There is so much substance under the amount of style that's here. It's truly remarkable and a miracle in filmmaking how this was made. I know the conditions weren't the greatest as they were reported, and I feel bad for that. But the product that did come out of it, at least, is something that I'm hoping that they're proud of. I'm very thankful I got to see this 3 times so far. I do want a rewatch, especially before Beyond the Spider-Verse, maybe a few more rewatches before Beyond the Spider-Verse. But I am just so excited because this could genuinely be one of my favorite trilogies of all time. With the inclusion of Miguel O'Hara in this story too, and just putting Gwen Stacy in the forefront a little bit more in this, there are so many wonderful things that make this better than its predecessor. And not that the predecessor was bad in any way, it was one of my favorite animated movies of all time too, but this just does everything on such a larger and better scale. And that score, absolutely gorgeous. Coming in at number 2, I have Everything Everywhere All at Once from 2022. I have watched this movie 5 times, and the impact it's had on me and my creativity and just my mental health and just everything, and just even in my personal life, it's truly not only one of the best films I have ever seen, and I'm glad it won Best Picture, but it's just one of my favorite movies of all time, and it means so much to me because it gave me the courage to even do something in my personal life and actually go for it. And it also helped me with a personal project that I did, a short film called Infinite Dates, which if you haven't seen, it's on the channel. But in general, this is just such a beautiful well of creativity and what you can do in a movie and still have these incredibly deep themes all throughout the film and still be silly and imaginative and sci-fi, but also be so dramatic and down to earth while also just being so sky high. This movie is basically everything you could want in a film. It's so emotional, and Michelle Yeoh, one of the greatest performances I think I'll ever see. There is that weird thing with Jamie Lee Curtis winning an Oscar for this movie where it should have gone to Stephanie Hsu, but it is what it is. But we also did get Ke Huy Quan winning Best Supporting Actor, completely deserved. And that score, it's life-altering, and just like the whole movie, to me, it was life-altering in the best way possible, and I owe so much to this movie. And yet, there is still one movie that I think is better and much more my favorite than this one. So, coming in at number 1, my favorite movie of the 2020s so far, Past Lives from 2023. A directorial debut from Celine Song. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I mean that in the sense that it's literally my second favorite movie of all time. I've seen this now 6 times, and a 7th might be real soon. To me, this is a movie that transcends any other film. The media of film, this is above that to me. A clear and easy 5 out of 5, except for the first time I watched it, This is something that will always inspire me and will always be something I go back to. And even though it is not the easiest of watches, this is such a comfort film to me. This encapsulates exactly what I want to make as a filmmaker, and I hope to make one day, even just right. This will forever be on a pedestal for me. It's extremely beautiful. Once again, the score, the performances from Greta Lee and the 2 supporting actors, the screenplay, the visuals in its cinematography and its editing, everything in this is just so intentional and pure and just movie magic by any stretch of the imagination. And yet at its core, it's a simple story. It's nothing groundbreaking in any way really, except it's just perfect at almost everything it does. And it's just so easily my favorite movie from the 2020s so far. This is a movie that I'm going to be thinking about and recommending till the end of time, I think, because it's just so perfect. But alright, those are my favorite movies of the 2020s so far. Be sure to let me know what you think of these movies down in the comments below. And also let me know what your favorite films of the decade is so far. There's so many that I've seen. And there's even so many that I still have yet to see. This decade has been really great. Had some wonderful years in filmmaking, especially 2022 and 2023. And I'm just so interested to see what you guys think are the best films of the entire decade so far. Also, let me know which ones you're looking forward to, because there are so many great years still to come. But alright, as always, thank you guys for watching, liking, and subscribing. Be sure to stay tuned for more Yeti Films content, and I'll catch you later.